Welcome back to the L&D Explorers podcast from GoSkills. On today's episode, we speak with Alicia Hughes, the founder of Sparking Up Leadership. She's an experienced educator and administrator and consultant for online teams who's going to be talking to us today about leadership development for remote workers. So we'll discuss the essential skills remote leaders need, how L&D teams can provide the right training, and the importance of building a remote culture, even if you have to schedule those fun times. My name's Dan Gorgone from GoSkills, and I hope you enjoy this discussion. Hey everyone, welcome back. My name is Dan Gorgone. I'm the course producer at GoSkills, and I'm your host here for the L&D Explorers podcast. And joining us today is Alicia Hughes, the founder of Sparking Up Leadership, and we're going to be talking about leadership development for remote workers. Alicia, welcome.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Awesome. I saw that in addition to being the founder of Sparking Up Leadership, you started your career as a teacher. So I want to say thank you for your service.
Oh, well, thank you.
Very much so. As well as many years of experience in the world of education, in person, but also online, teaching as well as administration. So, I mean, you've really kind of seen it all in the world of education. So, certainly it puts you in a unique position where you can share your insights. And so that's why we're very glad that you're here today. Especially talk about leadership. With the pandemic some years ago now, and some companies have really established themselves with an online presence, an online workforce. The ability to work online, it's a set of skills that still needs to be normalized. It still needs to be formalized in a lot of ways.
Yes,
and with
absolutely.
that is leadership too. Being able to lead a remote team, a remote workforce. Sometimes these are people you never meet in your life. It requires a really unique set of skills. So let's talk about that, because there's definitely some unique challenges that remote leaders face. What are maybe the most critical skills that online leaders need?
Sure. Well, having been in both worlds, both in the brick and mortar and the remote world, I know they are vastly different. And I think what happens so many times is leaders come into this space thinking, I'll just do what I did in the brick and mortar setting and it will translate. It will move itself over naturally. And nothing could be further from the truth than that statement. There are definite skills needed and certain nuances that you have to perfect in this space if you want to be effective. And number one is communication. And that is the biggest challenge that I see remote leaders facing. You have to communicate consistently, often, and with intentionality. You may think, my staff knows this, they understand this, so I don't need to tell them this. And so when you allow things to go unsaid, it tends to fester and grow into something that you don't want in the virtual space. So having strong communication skills is key to success.
I would agree completely. And one of the things you were saying is makes me think that it may not be easy for some of those leaders out there. I mean, some people are natural introverts. And so when you put someone like that in a position of leadership, whether it's, they're managing reports or they're project managing or leading some kind of group, it's got to be challenging when you're asking someone who is naturally not much of a talker, maybe not much of a communicator, to be reaching out proactively to people. Is there a way that you can help kind of build those skills, or maybe build the confidence of people like that?
Yes, and I found what was crucial as a leader was to spend individual time, much like we're doing here today, with my entire school, to find moments to meet, to get to know that person, to create a sense of safety. Because remember, in the remote space, like you mentioned earlier, you may never see this person in person. So you won't have the opportunity to bump into them in the hallway or pass them on the way in and out of the building. So you have to create those opportunities to get to know your staff and allow them that feeling of trust and safety and inclusion. And then you have to know how to lead them when you're in group settings, because you're right, it's so easy for people to disappear, if you will, virtually, whether that means turning off the camera or just not at all speaking or participating. And so you have to be, I like to say intentional whenever I'm talking about remote work, but intentional in every interaction, because there are no happy accidents that you bump into each other. So being intentional, creating the spaces, and taking the time to proactively know your staff and know the needs of those staff members.
And so let's dig into that a little more because we definitely want to take this from an L&D perspective here,
Mm-hmm.
especially on this podcast. So you're an L&D professional and you've been tasked with coming up with a learning program, not just for different employees in different parts of the company, but also leadership and coming up with specialized programs to help them do all the things that they need to do. As far as remote leadership goes, if you're an L&D professional and you need to develop a program, courses or two, are there some best practices that kind of come to mind?
Absolutely. And so making sure policies, procedures address the special location of the remote world. And so making sure your policies and procedures line up with the expectations. And I think a lot of times we forget that, right? Like, oh, everybody should know they need to log on at 7:30 because that's when the workday starts. Oh, everyone should know they need to turn the camera on when they're talking to each other. And so making sure that that is included within the course, setting those clear expectations that you might not think about in the brick and mortar space, communicating them out to staff, training staff on those expectations. That should be a big part of any course for remote workers, making sure the expectations are crystal clear, which goes back to communication.
Absolutely, absolutely. And another thing that remote leaders are expected to be able to do is build culture. And this is something that maybe some of the people watching out there, they hear that and they immediately think, ah, yes, I wish that this such and such leader was able to maybe build something a little better, maybe be able to show some personality or spread some fun or something. Like, not every day at work needs to be Disney World, but at
Mhm.
least you have to have a sense of community and camaraderie. And certainly when you're talking culture, you're talking about building trust in people. So when it comes to remote leaders, how can they effectively build culture, a strong organizational culture? Are there strategies and tools maybe that you might recommend?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So again, I'll say that word one more time. Intentionality is key because you're not going to eat lunch together in the break room or meet for happy hour after the day ends. So you have to create similar experiences. And some ways to do that do mimic the brick and mortar setting. So perhaps you start each Monday with a coffee talk and you put something on everyone's calendar and you ask them to come in and just talk about their weekend. It sounds simple, right? And those are the things that happen naturally in an office building, but don't happen so naturally virtually. So, creating spaces to allow staff to work and talk to each other. Then you've got to build teams and set those expectations around what teamwork in the virtual space looks like. And so maybe there are required meetings that you want your teams to attend together. Maybe there are certain documents like a Google Doc or Canva that you're going to have your staff working on together. You have to have tracking platforms because you won't have, a sheet of paper in your conference room where you're marking off when everything happened. So you have a shared place, maybe it's monday.com or the like, where you can track the progress of projects and being visible and transparent as much as possible because you're not going to see those employees face to face or see their work live and in the moment. So creating opportunities to share in that way is key.
I love that idea of intentionality in that way and creating, not just creating the opportunities, but like you write about on your site, you talk about planning the fun. You talk about scheduling the fun, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like
Yeah,
talk to us about some of the things that are maybe like simple things,
mm-hmm.
but could really go a long way. What are some things that you could
Sure.
schedule like that?
Sure. Well, like I mentioned, the coffee talk, but we did virtual happy hours. Come
Yeah.
on at 4 o'clock on a Thursday, grab your favorite beverage, and let's just talk about our week or our upcoming weekend. We had forced fun. I always like to say forced fun. So about once a month on a Friday afternoon, the last hour of the workday, we might have a trivia contest, something, or a scavenger hunt. Go around your house and find a blue item or something cold and show it on the screen. So we would force these opportunities, team building, and again, staff working together, having a good time, talking in the chat pod, getting to know each other. We also were always celebrating. Celebration is sometimes difficult virtually. And so we would have platforms where people could recognize each other and everyone could see what was going on in different departments and different teams. We had virtual celebrations, awards days, right? Where we were, oh, so and so had the highest passage rate this semester. Yay. And everybody's clapping and putting up the little emojis. And so, again, taking what you do in the office and figuring out a way to adapt it and use it virtually.
And I'll ask one more thing too that's kind of connected to that. What is your stance on forcing video cameras on during
Oh,
meetings? Because
right.
I know there's plenty of people out there like, no, the camera's off. I could sit here. Yes, I could
Mm-hmm.
lay back. I could
Mm-hmm.
whatever and relax. But when you know that your camera's going to be on, it's a whole different thing. Now, what's your stance on that?
Oh, my stance is cameras will be on. Now, if there's a reason why you need to turn it off, maybe you're just very under the weather and you're, very sick, but you still want to attend the meeting, or power goes out, whatever. Of course, those you can allow for that flexibility. But the stance at my organization was always you are meeting with someone, your camera will be on, whether it's one-on-one, small group, whole staff, because you're right. When you turn that camera off, you can do 100 other things or even walk away, go make dinner, go walk the dog. There are plenty of ways you can disappear. And so without this, it's hard to be accountable and participatory. And so we always had the cameras on rule, expectations. And at first, I'll tell you, staff fought that. Ooh, were staff mad? Oh my goodness. We heard every reason why the staff couldn't turn on the camera. My hair won't be done. My makeup won't be done. I've got a messy office. I'm embarrassed by my house. And we would say over and over, we don't care about that. We do not care. We will not judge. We will not. We just need to know you are present and engaged. And then it just became as natural as what you and I are doing here today. No one ever thought differently of it. So, if an organization is not already doing that, they should expect that backlash. But eventually, staff will come around. And I swear it was the turning point for all that we did.
That's really cool to hear. And I completely agree too, because I can share some of the experience that we've had at GoSkills as well, because there was a good time where I would say that the cameras were off all the
Mhm.
time.
Oh,
And
for
really
sure.
like the only time that maybe we would turn them on is if we had a new employee joining.
Mhm.
And so then suddenly we see all the faces and everything, and then we turn off the cameras again. But we've been very lucky at GoSkills to be able to meet in person periodically. And when I say periodically, um, once a year or maybe 18 months or so, groups of us can get together and have a retreat, occasionally meet in person. And it's a very, very special thing for remote
It
teams
is.
to be able to do that.
It
It's
is.
incredible to really meet your coworkers when you
It
know you're
is.
seeing them every day virtually, but then when you see them in person, it's so special. So if your company can do it, if you can
Mhm.
afford to do it, please consider it. I mean,
Agree.
what's your take on it?
Oh, I agree 100%. We were fortunate in that South Carolina, where I am, is a small state.
Hmm.
And the majority of the staff lived in state. And we had a centralized office. So no one was more than a 3 hour drive, give or take, from that office. And we would have set meetings for the whole staff, for departments, for different groups, and always gave staff that option. Listen, if you are wanting to work together on a project, the office is there. Please make use of it. And those were our best days. So, as someone who loves the virtual space and knows the power that it has, I also know nothing beats that face to face interaction. And so, if you are a fully remote organization, it is important to build, again, intentionality around opportunities to allow staff to connect, even if only once or twice a year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, if there are remote leaders listening to this podcast, or if you're an L&D person who is trying to come up with ideas to spread to the leaders in your organization, I think a lot of these can really go a long way. And some of them are they're just little things like turning on the camera or
Correct.
having a special Slack channel, which is just for fun, or monthly
Correct.
trivia nights, or anything
Yep.
like that. All right, so we've kind of talked about how if you can get everyone together, if you can get a lot of people together in different ways remotely, you can build that sense of connection and cohesion. But what about amongst the leadership? What can you do? Because training programs for the general population of your organization is usually quite different than that leadership training that you are going to provide.
Mhm.
So as an L&D professional, what can you provide to the leaders in your organization, be it some kind of online program or a retreat or boot camp or any kind of thing? What are the sort of things that can bring the leaders together so that
Mhm.
they can align their visions, align their priorities, and really connect with, the mission of the company, and they can all be on the same page?
Oh my gosh, you hit it on the head right there. Same page. Because of the nature of remote work, it's very easy if you do not operate as a team to all be doing something different and be siloed. And then if an employee comes to you with a question, you might answer very differently from the next person. And so ensuring your leadership team is um, cohesive and understands the expectations and the vision and the mission is so crucial. And so you almost need to require those face to face opportunities. And I know that's easier said than done, depending on how your company's structured, if it's worldwide or, even across the United States. But it is so important to make sure everyone understands the expectations, understands the goals, how we're going to reach the goals, how we're going to communicate with staff, what the culture is, how to sustain the culture, and then models all those behaviors. And again, that only comes when you are closely working together as a team. In our organization, we had weekly leadership team meetings, much like this, cameras on, agendas. And we did that for years to ensure all the leaders knew the expectations, were on the same page with things, had time to discuss issues, to make sure we're operating as one as much as possible. So again, it just comes back to that intentionality, building the spaces, creating those opportunities to connect and grow and collaborate.
Moving forward, when we're talking about leadership development for remote workers, um, what are the opportunities? What are kind of the future trends if you put on your hat and your look at the crystal ball
Oh, my
and
crystal ball.
and
Yeah.
and and start to predict the future? I know we have talked about AI and the opportunities that it
Mhm.
presents already many times on this program. Uh, is that something that you see will be instrumental in leadership development for remote teams? That and what else?
Well, I know AI will have a huge impact on remote teams because it will allow so much more time to do what we're doing, right? To talk, to connect, to collaborate. So if you take off the tasks and the minutia that usually comes in leadership roles, right? Like keeping up with certain things, if that can be automated in such a way that it allows leaders to be with the people, that was the hardest part for me. I had all these tasks I had to do, but this is what I wanted to do and knew was the most important thing. So AI will be crucial to allowing virtual and remote leaders this kind of opportunity. And then embracing this space. I fear, as I watch large companies having returned to office mandates, I fear that we are missing out on a wonderful option for workers and organizations because time wasn't spent building leaders and putting into practice the necessary tools, processes, procedures to make this work. And that is my fear, that this wonderful place that can do wonders for organizations and the people that work there may be thrown to the wayside because people don't quite understand how to do it well.
Well, the last thing I'm going to ask you to do then is expand upon that, because I can see you're going in that direction, and it goes exactly to what I was also reading on your site about this idea where you were saying that yes, a lot of people have a fear, apprehension about working remotely because they think, well, I can't see what my workers are doing. I can't, they come up with all the excuses, and we know by now if you're doing it right, it can really happen, and it can happen very well. You have said that you have developed some amazing relationships working remotely, some of the best relationships that you ever had professionally. And so tell us, how can we begin to approach that? Even step one for the L&D managers out there trying to build this remote culture through training, through helping leaders understand it better. What are the ways that we can all kind of follow your example and experience and develop those better relationships?
It's really pretty simple. People are everything. And when you go into creating a course, creating a process, creating a learning experience, and you put the people at the heart of that and their needs, and not just treat it as this is a program, this is the checkbox mentality, this is go get it done and don't bother me. If you make it people centered, it wins every single time. And that's why our school was so successful, because we said we are going to pour into our people. Even though they live all across the state and some across the country, we are pouring into our people, and they will in turn pour into our students, which were also virtual and they didn't see. And that's how we had tremendous success. So remembering it's always about the people and finding the creative ways in this setting to build those relationships and continue to inspire and motivate. That is the key to success.
I love that. Some great messages here on this episode. You talked about how communication is key and people are the center, intentionality, ensuring that even if we have to schedule fun, damn it, we're going to have fun.
Oh, yeah, we are going to have fun, whether you like it or not. And that is one thought I can end on. I had some of the staunchest, most serious people in the world, and I would get them on camera, and I'd be throwing glitter at the camera and doing something crazy, lighting my lighter, to do the music, and they would just be dying laughing and talk about it forever. And so you just have to create the opportunities, perhaps force a little bit to get people outside of this little box, but then the magic can happen.
I love it. A lot of good lessons today. So Alicia Hughes, the founder of Sparking Up Leadership, sparkingupleadership.com, right? That's one of the best places to find you. Where else?
LinkedIn, Alicia Victoria Hughes is where you can find me if you search that way. And those will probably be the best way. So I would love for people to connect with me if they want to learn more. I'm always sharing tips and tricks. And let's make this virtual space sparkly, productive, and positive for all those who enter.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching this episode of the L&D Explorers podcast. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like and subscribe because more episodes are on the way. And no matter what your learning and development goals are, GoSkills can help. Click the link in the description to find out more. And thanks again for watching.